Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Josh and Jason Monday Christian Conspiracy Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Monday. If you don't know me, I'm a Christian rapper, devoted husband, father, and Army veteran. And Jason won't be with me this morning, but it's all good. But yeah, I have a very special guest. Chris, I'll probably butcher your last name. So Chris Bozung, is that how you say it?
Bozung, yeah,
And it's
Bozung.
and it's Dr. Bozung.
Yeah, I
So
yeah, I actually go by Dr. Bose. Make it
Dr.
easy.
Bose, there we go.
Dr. Bose, just to
Well,
make it easy.
good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining me. And Chris had heard my Biblical Cosmology podcast. I mean, probably a lot of them. And Matt Long actually wanted me to have you on. Matt was telling me to have you on, and we talked like probably like a good like 8 or 9 months ago. And then yeah, now we finally got you on. So I appreciate you coming on. I really do. And anything you want to go over today, I'm definitely open for that.
Sure, sure, yeah. Well, where do you want me to start?
Well, if you want, you could start like because you were saying that you heard my biblical cosmology. There was some things that maybe you could fill in or help me with because guys, we're all human, and I definitely try to do my best to do research and pray to God that I'm teaching correctly. And Chris, obviously, he has actually a background. Can you give him your background, please?
Sure, yeah. So, gosh, I'll give you a little bit of my personal background and a little bit of my educational background. I was born in New Jersey. My folks actually met in New Jersey. My dad went to high school at Carl Sagan.
Oh wow.
My brother wrote to Carl Sagan a few times. My brother wanted to become an astronaut, and my dad was an engineer. He worked for Merck Pharmaceutical in Rahway, New Jersey. Rahway's a pretty big, or Merck's a pretty big pharmaceutical company. And I went down to Laterno College down in Longview, Texas. Laterno is one of the biggest Christian engineering schools, probably in the nation, maybe in the world. And that's a whole nother interesting story. Uh,
Mhm.
the gentleman by the name of Laterno that started that school, just so fascinating and interesting. But anyway, when I got to that school, I ended up taking by requirement some classes on Bible, New Testament, Old Testament surveys, that sort of thing. And I'd never had any. I didn't get saved till I was 15. I was raised a Catholic
Mhm.
and took the classes and told my dad I wanted to go to Bible college. And he's like, well, let's finish out the year. Ended up going to Philadelphia College of Bible. And through Philadelphia College of Bible, I ended up going to Israel for a year. I lived in Jerusalem. Matter of fact, half these diplomas, I don't know how many you can see up there, but they're all my education behind me. And at Philadelphia College of Bible, after I came back from Israel, I spent a year there living in Jerusalem, came back from what we called PCB at the time. It's now called Cairn, Cairn University or something like that in Langhorne, Pennsylvania. Came back, met my wife, and that's a whole interesting short story. We ended up going down to Dallas Seminary after we got married, and at Dallas Seminary, I had a 4 year master's. I took, the Greek, the Hebrew, the whole 9 yards, and after that, tons of ministry, that sort of thing. Ended up getting my doctorate at Regent University in Virginia Beach. That's the school Pat Robertson started. So,
Wow.
boy, I just kind of rushed through all that stuff. But that's like we're going to be married. What's today? We're going to be married like 40 years next year.
God is so
So
great. What a
I met
blessing, man.
I met her on December 9th, my wife, and so that's just a few days from now, anniversary of it. And back in the day, we called it going steady. By the 16th of December, we were going steady. She went down to her school. I went down to her home after the semester. I went down to my home. She was living in Maryland at the time. And over Christmas, we met each other's families, that sort of thing. And came back to the spring semester, what we called spring semester in January. And on the 16th, I asked her to marry me. So,
Wow. Hey, that's you already met the family, so you were like, hey,
gosh,
go.
man.
So hey, what a blessing. God is
Yeah,
great, man, for you to go through all that education and for you guys to be apart for a little bit and just end up tying the knot and sticking with each other this whole time is such an amazing feat. I've been with my wife for 17 years
yeah,
in
okay.
May. Yeah, so it's
Wow,
such a blessing, man. Yeah, I was in the army, so we went through that. I was gone for a year, deployed, and we dealt with that, and we got married right before I deployed, and but we've
that's
been
tough.
together for 17 years. We're going steady in the beginning, right? And then we
Yeah,
got married after 7 years. And once I went in the military, deployed, came back, and then I had a daughter, and then I just got out of the military. I loved it though. It was one of my the military actually just like straightened my life out with God though too. I got saved, and then God and the discipline and everything was it just really straightened my life out totally. And I all glory to God for that. I think He wanted to strip everything out of me and then help build me spiritually, physically, and mentally, and that combination just really really did a number on my life. So,
that's amazing. That's great.
yes. So yeah, wherever you want to start, biblical cosmology, if you want to get into that and uh wherever you want to go, I'm down, definitely. I
Sure,
really
sure, sure.
enjoy it.
Yeah, we could jump right in. I mean, one of the things that I thought we'd start with um, is the two words in Isaiah. To me, um, I've literally only been a flat earther. It'll be in April. It'll be 2 years, April or May, something like that.
Okay.
But I started my journey down the rabbit hole with at the beginning of COVID, like most people did, and I had it started because okay, so one of the things that I've done my whole life, in addition to ministry, is handyman work and painting. I got my first paint job when I was 8 that I got paid for,
Wow.
1968, 69, something like that. This guy on my brother's paper route needed this garage whitewashed. The old Tom Sawyer thing where they whitewash the fence. So I whitewashed his garage and got $20.
Hey.
And but all through my education, like on 9/11, when the planes hit, or didn't, I I got I was in charge of maintenance on 224 apartments, and uh, working on my doctorate. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When I was working on my master's degree at Dallas Seminary, I was in charge of maintenance there. So everywhere I've gone, I've done handyman work and or painting, and in addition to ministry. So, but I say all that to say that at the beginning of 9/11, I ended up tearing my retina in my eye, and I had to take a couple of days off. And when I did, that's when I started my journey down the rabbit hole. And I really started with a video by, it was kind of narrated by Ed Asner, called um, Solving the Mystery of Building 7. It's like
Mm.
14 minutes long. It's a great introductory video to show people, and it shows how Building 7 comes down. And I didn't know anything about Building 7. And then from there, I went on to a little video called American Moon. I think it's an Italian video, but this is the American version, and it talks about the moon landing, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, then I watched JFK to 9/11. Everything's a rich man's trick. Awesome, awesome little video. Watched the one on the Titanic, how the Titanic really didn't sink, all that kind of stuff. And from there, I just kept going. I mean, I could go on with all the little videos I watched, but Flat Earth, when I heard about Flat Earth, and I don't really know when I heard about it, I'm like, let's go down this rabbit hole. And when I went down the rabbit hole, there's just no going back. It's just but the verses that really kind of stuck with me were the two in Isaiah, where Isaiah 40, 22 talks
Yeah.
about,
Let me
you
you,
know,
you want me to bring that up real quick? See
yeah,
if I
if you
can
want
do
to
that.
bring that up and bring up the one in Isaiah 22. And if you want
There
to
we
talk
go.
for a second.
There we go. Isaiah. Ooh, I can't. It's hard for me to type over my microphone. It's 4022 should come up. Bible Hub. Oh, no. I think I'm spelling Isaiah wrong. Yep. Hold on. Isaiah. Wait. Hold on.
You're good.
That's why.
It's a tough word.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? How do you spell? I don't know why I'm.
You got it. You had it. ISAI
H. There we go.
A.
Sorry, guys. I'm
That's okay.
dyslexic. No, I'm just kidding. Isaiah. Yeah, let's see. Does it come up? I just want to pull up Isaiah.
Oh, you can do 21st. Okay, 2218 is
Oh,
the
it's
one.
all right. 40. Oh, that's the one you're looking for?
Well, let's do them
2218?
both. Let's do them both because to me, the same author. Here's my little doggies here. I guess my wife let him out. Let her out.
Isaiah 40:22. That's the international version. We want to go.
Yeah. So this is the verse that uses the word circle,
Yeah.
the Hebrew word which we would say
Coog.
circle.
Right. Coog, right?
Yeah.
40:22. Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Sweet. All right. Perfect. So you want to start with that one? Is that okay?
Yeah. Now, if you want, you could explain these two.
Yeah. So I'll start out at Isaiah 40:21. Have you not known? Have you not heard? Have you not been told from the beginning? Have you not understood from the foundations of the earth? So he's telling you, going back to the beginning, which I'd say Genesis, it is he who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain and spreads them out like a tent to dwell in. So something that I think is important is the fact that it is he, capital H, speaking of God, who sits over above the circle of the earth, right? So that's the part I think is very important here. Most people, they concentrate on that word circle, because they're like, hey, it's a circle, it's not a sphere. That's important, obviously, yes, because if God is looking down, he's seeing a circle, right? But what I think is very important is just saying that he is sitting above the circle of the earth. For me, the reason why I say that is because where's God's location? I mean, if you look at Ezekiel 126, it says that God's throne is above the firmament, right? So if you have the firmament and then God sitting above the circle of the earth, that's where God's location is, right? And he's looking down on the circle of the earth, right? And that word circle, I think I have it in my, I can look it up in the Strong's Concordance, but if you'd like, you could go over whatever you want to go over and I'll look up the,
No, we don't have to go in real depth here. I just thought I'd put this out because the same author now is then going to use the word what we'd say ball in 2218, and if he thought the earth in this verse was a ball, he could have used the same word that he could have repeated the same word that 18 chapters earlier he uses the word ball to talk about throwing judgment to a country, and it would have still been on his lips. Why didn't he use it here? And I think the reason I love these two, and if you want the other verses 22:18,
Mhm.
he could have used that word here because he used it 18 chapters earlier. That's the point that when I saw these two used by the same author, and then we're going to go to Genesis in a few minutes, but the point is that here's the same author using two different distinct words, and that's really that's the big thing I want to focus on is
22. Yeah, we'll go to 22:18 real quick so everybody can understand what we're talking about.
okay.
It said we'll start at 17. It said, behold, the Lord will carry thee away a mighty captivity, and he will surely cover thee. He will surely and violently turn and toss thee like a ball into a large country. Thou shalt die. Wait, there shalt thou die, and the chariots of thy glory shall be the same as thy Lord's house. So yes, so toss thee like a ball into a large country. So like he said, yeah, that is a word that they used, and also like in the Greek as well, they could have used the word sphero, which is sphere, but they ended up using the word circle when they translated the Greek Septuagint. So as you know, the people that translated the Septuagint were Hebrew scholars, and they wanted to stay true to the Hebrew, translated it to the Greek, right? So they didn't use the word sphero. They could have used that. So I think that is important as well. You know, the way that they chose to translate that.
I agree 100%. And when I was when I was learning about flat Earth, and you've probably been a flat earther for many, many, many years more than me.
Well, just honestly, about when I started my podcast about 4 years ago,
Okay.
that's when I started too. So what I did is once I went into the Bible and found that out, then as the Bible says it for me, I believe it. So that's just the
Yeah,
way it is for me.
I agree. I agree. I agree. I often say, and this is going to sound pretty cruel coming from a guy with 12 years of higher education in Bible and theology, but you know, if you can't trust one part of the Bible, you might as well use it for toilet paper.
Yes, I
I mean,
agree.
I sincerely feel that way, and it's amazing how many people I meet that don't trust the Bible. And I think my little doggy has to go out. Can you
No
give me
problem.
just a second?
Yeah, no worries, no worries, no worries. Yeah, guys. So they when nature calls, we got to take care of it. So yeah, so as we were talking, so guys, we're talking about Isaiah 40:22, and I think for me that circle word definitely is important, because he's above the circle of the earth. But if there is if God is trillions upon trillions of miles away, like they try to say in this heliocentric model, because God's throne is above the firmament, right? It says it in Ezekiel 126, Ezekiel 10:1. If God's throne is above the firmament, then here it's telling you that God sits above the circle of the earth. So he's actually sitting above the earth. And in the model that we have, biblical cosmology model, we have the God's throne above the firmament, we have a firmament, and then we have it connecting to the earth, and the moon, sun, and the stars are within the firmament, right? And they're making their movements. So if God is above the circle of the earth, looking down, like we believe, that's why you can have in Revelation all the stars fall to the earth when it says that in so what I was talking about, Chris, is God being above the firmament, right? If he was trillions upon trillions of miles away, because it says God's throne is above the firmament, then this doesn't make sense, right? If it says it is he who sits above the circle of the earth, right? So
Yeah, yeah, I
God's
agree.
throne above the firmament connected to the earth. That's why in Revelation, when it says that all the stars will fall to the earth like a fig tree, it makes sense, because if they're
Oh,
all within the firmament and they connect to the earth, the firmament, then that's no problem, right? And in Isaiah,
totally,
it also
totally.
says it.
So the thing I want to kind of steer our your listeners is the fact that we've got two words, meaning I think they mean completely different things. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree
In
too. Definitely.
in the same book, and that's where we want to go when we go to Genesis. We want to go two words meaning completely different things in the same book.
Okay, so and just so you guys know, ball is dur, right? It's let's see if how you pronounce it.
Yes, it is. You're right. You're totally right about that.
54. Door.
It's dur.
Door.
That's the way you say it.
If
So,
anybody wants to look it up, it's H 1754.
yep. There you go. H 1754. Perfect. So, and then the other one is Coog. So it's different. It's a different word
Yeah,
there. So, all right.
completely different word.
And then so yeah, guys, that just note that so you guys know this is just a little deeper in depth study for you guys. And then then we're going to Genesis, right?
Yeah, let's go to Genesis 1 now.
Okay. Oh, my thing is capital. So
So let me just take a second though to tell you um, what I hold to before we go into flat Earth. The reason I want to tell you that is because I've got these I probably have 100 Bible charts, and the other day I was looking to get I want to get them on the internet. I want to get them accessible to people. So I'm looking for someone to kind of host these. And
yeah,
honestly, if any of your listeners know how to do this stuff, I mean, I just want to get the material out there. But one of the things I was doing, I was looking at the two guys that at one particular site that I found, and I wrote them an email. And I know it was Thanksgiving, so they're not going to reply yet. But I wrote these two guys, and I'm like, I wanted to look into their background. Where do they go to school? Um, and what kind of solid, in my opinion, solid education. So I don't, and my mind's just racing a thousand places with what I'm saying right now.
No worries.
But I want you to know, and I want your viewers to know that you and I probably have a lot of things in common. A lot of things in common. I want you to know that because I'm going to take you somewhere where you're going to say, "Hey, Chris is off his rocker."
Oh,
Okay,
not yeah,
you see what I'm saying?
Chris. You don't understand, man. You don't understand how many people I've had on my show already. I'm already on episode 219 now, and believe me, I've heard it all. So not all of it,
I
but
know you have, but what I want to do is I want to try to win you over. So I believe in no death before the fall, and you let me know with some of these things if they resonate, right? So no death before the fall. So I don't believe like Hugh Ross believes that each of the days in Genesis are like millions of years. So I believe each of the days are literal 24-hour days.
me too.
Okay, got you there. I believe that Adam and Eve were the first humans.
You're crazy, Chris. No, I believe the same thing. So no
Okay,
worries.
that's what I want to hear. And there's so many weird views out there. There's a view that there were millions of years of apes and that sort of thing, and then finally we got to the point that one of them became human, and God called that one the first human. See, I don't believe any of that. I believe in a literal interpretation of Genesis, of scripture, but particularly Genesis 1 and 2. And I'm hoping to take you a place where you become even more literal because one of the things I enjoy doing when I'm working as a handyman during the day, I kind of call that my second career. So I've pastored a number of churches, I've started a number of churches, I've done everything in ministry you can do. But right now, I'm a full-time handyman. Sometimes I'm a full-time pastor, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when I'm working, if I can, I listen to podcasts, and it's so tempting sometimes to listen to videos, but the problem is you got to look away from your work,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and I don't want to do that. So I listen to podcasts. So anyway, I hold what would be a very conservative view of Scripture, and I guess the best way I could say that is that my background, Philadelphia College of Bible, you've got this guy Lewis Sperry Schaefer who started Dallas Seminary. You've got Schofield who started Philadelphia College of Bible. They
Mhm.
were pretty much buddies. A lot of the teachers that taught at those two schools attended those two schools. A lot of those teachers, a lot of those graduates would go on to teach at Moody or Wheaton, that sort of thing. So I consider those schools to be fairly conservative, at least in their doctrine. I know sometimes dispensationalism really gets a bad rap.
Yeah.
I'm a dispensationalist. I'm a pre-tribber. But we all have little nuanced differences within all of that.
Yeah.
All of that stuff.
Of course. Yeah. I
And I kind of
understand.
I when I got saved, I was saved at 15, and the first Bible that was ever handed me was a Schofield, King James Schofield. Ended up putting it on when I met my wife. We got married. She had a Camaro, and I put it on the roof of that Camaro. I wish I had that. It was a '78 Camaro or something like that. Wish we had that Camaro.
Yeah.
But went down the street and the Bible fell off, and I never saw that Bible again. But
Oh.
I had signatures, autographs of people like, gosh, I can't even think of some of the guys I had. I had Corey Ten Boom had signed it, Francis Schaefer. Um, I can't even think of some. I haven't had this thought process in my mind for a while. So, but I had all kinds of great. See, the problem is when I was at Laterno, when I was at Philadelphia College of Bible, when I was at Dallas, it was a requirement to attend chapel, and you didn't get credit for it. So all these people would come and speak at in chapel, and afterward, I'd go up and I get their autograph in my Bible.
Well,
Some of these,
hey, Well, your Bible has the best autograph right now in history that you could ever have. You got Holy Spirit inspired and God's autographed it. So we're on. So what I would say,
Well,
well, hey, you know what? This is the thing. People right now, Chris, they're probably like those speeches that they maybe that are those sermons that they had. People go to YouTube and try to find them all right now. And good thing you were blessed with that to be able to hear those people speak.
I
So
know, I know. At the time, I mean,
you don't understand at the time, probably. You're like,
I was a brand new Christian, and I thought these people were literally giants of the faith. I mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
John Walvoord, and gosh, I can't even think. Chuck Swindoll. I mean,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
we had um, gosh, what's the name of the I can't think of some. I mean, we had them in our house, we had them in our church. You know, it was just and we didn't even know who these people were. You know,
Yeah.
Sandy Patty. I was going to say Sandy Patty. I mean, I think I met Sandy Patty when she was 13. You know, I don't even know if
What a
people know
blessing.
these names. You know what I'm
I know
saying?
Chuck
But
Swindoll. Some of the other ones I might not know, but I've probably heard before, you know.
well,
So
Chuck
it just depends.
Swindoll's right hand man at Dallas Seminary was a guy named Charlie Dyer,
Yeah.
Charlie Dyer Jr. And if you look up Charlie Dyer Jr., he's like the guy on Israel, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, I took all that for granted and I just took it in and I soaked it in. But I say all that to say that my background theologically is really conservative, and maybe someday we can visit some of the other things.
The stuff that you wanted to post, okay, the stuff that you wanted to post, did did you want to post it like on a website? Did you want to post it on something so people could see? I heard you say something about that. I mentioned that. I didn't.
Yeah, so I've got Bible charts. Give me 2 seconds here to dig
Okay.
one out.
Is it your own charts that you made, Chris?
Yeah, these are really these are how old am I? 63. These are charts from like gosh, you know, 50 years of ministry. And I'll just throw one up for I'm just randomly picking one here.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. The
You know,
Kingdoms of Daniel.
stuff
Yep.
like
That's the
that. But
statue in Daniel. Okay.
I've got so many charts. I mean, I'll just throw up a couple more. I don't know.
There's a guy that he has a company that does that parables of Matthew. Yeah, nice.
And
I wonder how we could
I'm
do
a
this.
so I took a test in when I was at Dallas Seminary. I took a test, and it turned out that I was 95% visual, and so that means I wasn't auditory and I wasn't kinesthetic. You know, hands-on. A guy works on a motor or an engine, right? And I really worked on the visual to the point where I wanted I wanted to make sure that I was bringing in the auditory, bringing in the kinesthetic. But I'll tell you, every sermon I've ever done, every teaching I've ever done, I have a lot of visuals. So here's another one. I mean, this is pretty common topic, right? The you know,
Mhm.
but color is the big thing that I use, and but it doesn't have to
So
be
you got
color.
all these things in the notebook, so you want to try to put them out somehow. So anybody
Yeah,
that's listening,
yeah.
just contact me at Josh Monday at rockamail.com if you can help him to maybe publish these or put these online somehow, or if you have a website or something that maybe we could do that with, I'll connect you with Chris. Yeah,
Yeah.
let me know, guys. I'm not the best at that kind of stuff. I'm good at recording and maybe that kind of stuff, but as far as a website and stuff, I'm not good at that. I know people that do that, but yeah,
I know.
that's awesome, man. And that stuff needs to be out there, you know. So
And
yeah,
it helps too because there's times when you'll study a book like Daniel, then you'll move on to another book and you're like, oh, what was that I believed in Daniel?
yeah,
You go back to these charts, you know, that sort of thing.
yes, I
So
agree.
so I can't emphasize enough that my what we're gonna get into, and I know I'm just I
What
should
I,
just
what I
jump
would
into
ask you, Chris, real quick before we get into it, why do you think that the people that you mentioned and most of the people that I hear are not understanding the Bible that we are the way we are with cosmology? Why is it you think that they will not step into that realm. Like when I hear people call on Pastor's Perspective, where there's all these apologists that are on there or something like that, and someone asks about that, they immediately deflect and don't even want to talk about it. And they're
Yeah.
it seems like they just do not want to even go there at all. And when I try to have people come on and debate me or something, or maybe talk to me, have a discussion, that the pastors don't want to do it. The people that have books, the authors don't want to do it. Most people don't want to talk about it, and then I've had some people reject me even coming on their show talking about that, but they're okay talking about the gap theory or something like that. What do you think, Chris? Because I know that you
Well,
have gone on both sides
I,
probably.
I think it has to do with where we enter from our life when we're saved, where we enter when where we enter Christianity and where we meet Jesus. When my wife got saved, she ended up getting saved in Langhorne, Pennsylvania, right where Philadelphia College of Bible was. So the friends that she ended up hanging out with were sitting under Rennie Shower's feet, John Kaywood. Gosh, I can't even think of some of these individuals that were just, in my opinion, were giant teachers.
Mhm.
Just solid teachers. So the teaching she got from the start was solid. If you get saved in and I don't want to pick on any state or any, but let's say you get saved in the middle of nowhere where there's no solid teaching, and the only pastor in town is a guy that went to what I would consider a more liberal colleges. You're going to have more liberal teaching. You're going to look at Genesis and you're going to say, oh well, there's a lot of stories in there. I mean, when I got saved, we went to our priest, a Catholic priest, back in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, and he said, "Yeah, Adam and Eve, that's a nice little story. It's in the Bible to teach a nice little, whatever."
Yeah.
I don't remember what he said, but all I remember was it wasn't he didn't believe they were real people. You know
Wow.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Jordan Peterson, that guy, he was talking to I can't remember the guy's name. Man, it's escaping me. The guy, he wrote a book on evolution. He's a scientist. I can't remember the guy's name right now, but
well, I
um,
have friends like that too that believe in evolution.
yeah, he was talking to a guy that he wrote a book on it, and he's a stark atheist. But anyways, he was asking him, "Do you really think that Cain and Abel were literal people?" And Jordan would not answer the question, like because he wants to be able to be in that circle with these people, because he wants to keep that fame. He doesn't want to say yes, they're literal people. Like, how could you not say that they're literal people? Like, if you're a Bible believer, to me, it just blows my mind when people say that, and to say something's an allegory or anything in Genesis, what that does is it puts a block wall. This is what I always say: it puts a block wall between these kids coming up, these students in college, and the Bible. It just continues to build block walls between them because they don't want to take the Bible serious. And when you read the Bible literally and you read it like it's an actual events that happen, I think the book of Genesis, if Chris, is a firsthand account from the Most High, from God. It has to be, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
if you have that type of information, we should cherish it, value it, as if God spoke it and said it, because obviously Moses is not alive at the time that this is written, or this happened. So this is God actually literally telling him what happened day by day, verse by verse, and it's not Moses's opinion. He's not going to write his own opinion on flat Earth or biblical cosmology. He's just taking it straight from God, right?
Yeah, I agree. And the thing that you're hinting at is the fact that people are scared for their livelihood. They're scared for, if I speak out, what will my peers say?
Yeah.
I got a brother that's got a PhD in theology. He went to Dallas Seminary also, and he thinks I'm nuts because I'm a flat earther. So, once you put this stuff out there, man, they tend to evaluate everything you say. It isn't crazy enough to be a Christian, right? In some families,
Yeah.
but then you say you're a flat earther or you believe the Bible literally, then you're really nuts.
How does your wife, what does your wife think
Oh,
about,
she's totally on board with all this. Yeah.
because she's a believer. That's the thing. If you're a
Oh
true
yeah, yeah, yeah,
believer,
yeah. Yep,
what
yep,
I say is if you're a true believer in the
yep.
Bible and the word, and if you present this to them, then they're going to believe it, So that's really awesome.
She wanted to go down the flat earth path way before I did. And I'd say things like, no, the Earth's got to be round because large bodies, they coalesce and they pull together and all the gases, and all this kind of stuff that we've been taught. But
Yeah. I
so,
get it.
but
Oh,
anyway,
well,
I
we could
say
go.
all that.
Hey, I just love the talking. I like to talk with you. First of all, I enjoy it. So
Well,
wherever you
good.
want to go, we could share the Bible again.
Good. Well, here's the thing. I want you to know though that some of the guys that I that I hear you interview, I'm just rolling my eyes when I hear some of the things they say, and I'm going, oh my gosh, man, these guys are just like
Yeah.
out to lunch, man, with what they believe. So you're going to say that about me in about 3 seconds. So, but all right, let's just jump in here. So
Uh,
one of the things that I believe when we read verse 1, you go ahead, you do the reading here. How's
okay, no
that?
worries, no worries. So this is the New King James. Just to let you guys know.
That's oh, okay, good.
Yeah, the reason why I read the New King James is sometimes when I read the King James, it's the does and stuff like that. This is where I can read it a little better, but just letting
Yeah,
you guys
that's
know,
fine.
this is the New King James.
That's
So
fine.
in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Just so you guys know, is heavens is it's heaven in the King James. It's Shamayim, so it is plural, and then the earth is eret. So just to let you guys know, it could mean dirt, it could mean the earth, or it could mean like territory. So just so you guys know. And then it says the earth was without form and
Okay,
void.
stop for a second because this is in my opinion where I want to kind of hone, and I don't mean hone you in, but in essence, yeah, I want to hone in Josh Monday.
No
I want
worries.
to. So in the Hebrew, I believe that the phrase heavens and earth is a Hebrew merism for everything. So a merism is when uh, you take some words, and those words, like if I say to you, we're going on a trip, Josh, and I want you to bring the kit and caboodle. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
It adds it. It's like, I mean, it's bring everything. Yes.
Everything. So I contest that the phrase heaven, like you said, it's plural, but it's singular it's singular in the Hebrew, but it's a singular word that has like scissors.
Hmm.
It sounds like a plural word because it has an S on the end, but it's a singular thing. So I contest that the phrase heavens and earth means, and people are going to hate this word, but it means universe. It means cosmos. It means everything, and that's contested by such scholars as John Sailhammer, who John Hale Sailhammer also attended Dallas Seminary. At one point, he was going to be provost of the seminary before Chuck Schwindel came in to become provost. That's a whole nother story. But John Sailhammer did a definitive work on Genesis, and I just happen to know because I was looking through his stuff the other day that he concurs with me. So this isn't something that I've come up with, but I figured if I'm going to be on a podcast like this, I might want to throw out a few guys that believe what I believe. Gosh, my mind's racing 1,000 places, but I'm really going to hone it. I was just going to go to spiritual gifts, but I won't go there right now
It's okay.
because
Yeah. So
I gotta,
there's some people that believe that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth is like a statement of just, hey, I'm just letting you know what I'm gonna do, like God saying that, and
yes,
then it goes on from there. So there's different
yes,
people that they believe different stuff. Some people believe that's a title page, right?
yep,
That's a title, and I'm game with it, with all of it. I'm just what I was the reason why I thought this certain way is because in the beginning, Elohim created the Shemayim and the Eret. It could be him telling us that's what he's doing. It could be that he created everything. It could be that he's just letting you know what he's gonna do. It could be that. The
yeah,
reason why I thought of it because it says heavens and earth. I think that he created his heaven where his throne is located, and maybe the space where he's gonna place the moon, sun, and the stars. And then the eret for me could be the foundations of the earth, right? Because the continents are not formed yet until day 3. So that's why I came to that conclusion, because if you go to Isaiah, it says, in the beginning, when God laid the foundations of the earth, right? That's why it says that in Isaiah 40:22. It's talking about the foundations, which I think that is different. And then that's why it says the earth or the continents were without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, which is the abuso, right? That is like where the water is, right? And then it says the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters, so that's why I came to that conclusion. But you could go with your thoughts on it. And I
Okay,
respect
so
everybody's thoughts on it. And Chris, I definitely respect yours. So go ahead.
so okay, so we're dealing with two different things right off the bat with verse 1. We're dealing with, is it as you said, is it a summary verse? Is it a title? Is it an introduction? Or, as I believe, it's a historical statement. And let me tell you why I believe that. Um, Gosh, you're gonna think I'm nuts here, but
I
so I've
Chris,
got some.
I don't think honestly, I don't think anybody's nuts, because we're mere men trying to decipher Hebrew and what God is saying, and God is obviously way more intelligent than all of us. So I don't think you're nuts at all. But go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is I was going to show you some books over here. I've got. Let me show you. I just show you one book, and we're going to lose a lot of listeners.
Ozzy Osbourne.
So I read this. I read this autobiography when at the time I was in full-time ministry, not full-time handyman work, and I actually I actually wrote him a letter and told him how much I thought he loved his family, And I get this manila envelope back in the mail, and you could tell somebody had addressed it, not him, and had a signed photo inside, which he did sign. But anyway, I bring that up because when we do a title of a book, normally what we do is we pull out. There's three parts to most sentences: subject, verb, predicate, right? Subject, verb, object, rather. And we pull out one of those um, parts of the parts of a sentence and make it a title. So I'm trying to see here. Okay, here's one that most of us will relate to: zetetic astronomy. Now, zetetic astronomy, that title doesn't have all the parts of a sentence that need to have. It's a title. So it doesn't have a subject, verb, object. You get that?
Yeah.
Zetetic. There's in this particular case, there's no verb there. There's really no subject. The subject is zetetic astronomy, but it doesn't have an action. Zetetic astronomy, even if I said for the beginner, that's a prepositional phrase, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let me do a couple here because I want you to see where I'm going with this. Okay, here's one called Trapped Under the Sea. Who, what, where, when, why, how, right? It's got a verb and then a prepositional phrase, but it doesn't have a person. Like, do you see what I'm trying to say? So
Yeah, I do.
a title lacks, and in the Hebrew, in verse 1, we have a subject, verb, and object. In the beginning, that's prepositional phrase. We have God. Then we have a verb. What does God do? He does this verb.
Created.
And then the object is the heavens and the earth. So that's why I contend that verse 1 is not a title.
Yeah.
Because if it was just a title, like even the book of Matthew, the way it starts, and some of the genealogies, the way they start, they lack the subject, verb, and object. You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So I contend it's not a title. I contend that what happened, if we only had Genesis 1:1, and then we had the New Testament, let's say, we could build a lot off of that. We could say, God, in the beginning, God, how they go off on all these diatribes. What did he do? He created the heavens and earth. So I believe that in verse 1, if we stopped right there, we have the creation of the cosmos, the universe, and of course our universe is limited to, the flat Earth, with the firmament and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I believe, and this is where it's going to start to rock your world, that included in verse 1 are the sun, the moon, and the stars. They are created in verse 1. And the verb there is bara, B-A-R-A. I don't have the Strong's.
For created, right? Is that
For
bara?
created,
Yeah. Okay.
B-A-R-A.
Okay. Okay, let's see. In the beginning, God created. I could look it up if you like.
You don't
Created.
have to if you don't want to. It's up.
Oh,
It's
it's all
up to
right.
you. I mean, we could revisit it too.
Created. It's yeah, bara. To create, shape, form, to shape, fashion, create, to heaven and earth, to individual man, new conditions, circumstances, kind of just going over. The fall,
Yeah.
to be created, or peel, to cut down, to cut out, to be fat is another word for it. But yes, to create, shape, or form.
Now, when I was on that podcast with Flatzoid,
Uh-huh.
one of the things, and I don't want to speak for him, and if he listens to this, I'm not speaking ill at him at all. I'm just pointing out the fact that at the moment when he brought this up, I wasn't prepared to back what I was saying with any evidence other than me, and he didn't know me from Boo, so I didn't hold any credence. I mean, one of the things that I learned walking in the Christian circles that I walked in is that sometimes a person, by their reputation, what they say, and their reputation precedes what they believe. So if I opened the door to my house right now and in came, let's say, Billy Graham's son, right away, if Billy Graham's son said something to me, it would carry a certain, and maybe that's not a great example, Mike,
Yeah.
but I'm
For
just
some
picking a
people, yeah.
person that
I know what you
everybody
mean.
knows.
I understand. I totally
They
do.
come in with a certain reputation, and I didn't have that here. But again, I'm going to go back to this John Sailhammer, who was a professor of Hebrew and had multiple degrees, PhD in linguistic languages and all that kind of stuff. He says, verse 3. Now and I'm not jumping to verse 3, but I'm just putting the verse 1 in his context. Verse 3 has often been taken to mean that God created light before he created the sun, since in verse 3 it says, let there be light, but not until verse 16 does the narrative speak of God making the sun. Now, this is the important part I want you to hear. He says, it should be noted, however, that the sun, moon, and stars are all to be included in the usual meaning of the phrase heavens and earth in verse 1. And thus, according to the present account, these celestial bodies were all created in verse 1. And that's the position I hold. And that particular quote there, I put that quote in here because, like I said, when I was talking to Flat, so I didn't have anybody else in my theological background backing me up.
Yes.
So go ahead.
Okay, so I think, but what does this gentleman believe though? He probably believes in the heliocentric model, and maybe, and I'm not saying that I'm not saying anything, Chris, but here's the thing. Here's why some people come up with that theory, I believe, and I know you're not because you believe like I do. But the reason why they come up with that theory sometimes is because they can't explain why the moon, sun, and the stars are created after the earth. Because they need the sun to be created before for it to be orbiting around the sun. But
true.
But go
I
ahead,
agree.
Chris.
He's probably heliocentric. And a
Oh
matter of
yeah,
fact,
I bet you 100% he is.
he died a few years ago, so he knows better now. But so
so what is your thoughts? So
here's my thoughts.
Go ahead. I'd love to hear.
There's so much to unpack here. By the way, how much total time do we have?
We have some time. I mean, I could probably go till about 6:45 maybe, and right now it's 5:53.
So another hour.
As long as my daughter doesn't come down. And Chris, we could always talk. We could always have a part 2 for sure. But
sure, we could have a part 2. So let me and I'm just going to jump all over the place, but we're going to go on whatever tangent you really want to go on. Bara is in verse 1. Do you know Bara? And I'm going to qualify these days here in a second. Bara is not found on day 1. Bara is not found on day 2. Bara is not found on day 3. Bara is not found on day 4. And Bara is only found on days 5 and 6 in conjunction with the creation of life. So here's where I'm going with this. I am a flat earth, young biosphere creationist. That's my by the way, that's my fake Facebook page if anybody wants to join there. So here's what I believe. I believe that in the beginning, God created, I'm going to use the word universe, but you know what I mean by that. I'm not out there with like Carl Sagan having, or some of these guys. And then what he did was he takes that earth, which is plainly sitting there in verse 2. We'll talk about that in a second. He takes that earth and he prepares it for life over the course of 6 literal days. He doesn't create the earth, he doesn't create the universe. He doesn't create the earth in 6 days. There's nowhere in scripture that says that God created the universe in 6 days. There's nowhere in scripture that God says he created the earth in 6 days. What it says is God created the earth, the universe in verse 1. He prepares it in 6 literal days. And that's the entire premise of where I'm going with what I'm telling you here now. Now I know you're already jumping ahead to another verse. I can see right now. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're writing down some notes.
No. I'm just I just wanted to go to see God created the heavens and the earth in 6 days and rested on the seventh. And Exodus 20:8-11. I was just looking at a reference real quick.
We can jump to Exodus.
It's all right. Let's continue
because
let's stick. Let's stick with this. So let's continue to do what we're doing in Genesis. So what is the biosphere that you were talking about? Just so people know, because they might not understand.
So what I want you to picture is after verse 1, I want you to picture the earth already sitting there, already created, but it's everything that verse 2 says. It's not ready for life. And then he takes 6 literal days to prepare the earth for life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand.
Okay. What I want to do, I want to jump ahead here for a second. When I say jump ahead, it's only in my notes. And I don't even need my dumb notes.
So no continents are formed, nothing like that.
No.
He would have now the only place I would contest, I would say that the moon, sun, and the stars are not created yet. That's it. But I do believe that God does have this water and he has the foundations of the earth there. He has where he's going to place the moon, sun, and the stars there. And then I think on day 2, just as personally for me, is when he said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, is when he created the firmament. So everything you're saying, I'm on board with. I think he does have the foundations of the earth already ready. The continents are not there yet. I do believe I believe he placed the firmament on day 2, which would where inside the firmament is the space where he's going to place the moon, sun, and the stars. So I'm on board with you here so far. I just don't believe that part about the moon, sun, and the stars being created yet, personally yet. But I do believe that's why I explain it in that certain way. And when people hear me explain this in the beginning, God created the Shamayim and the Eret. I think he has the space where he's going to create the moon, sun, where he's going to place the moon, sun, and the stars. But I just don't think they're created yet. But you think they're already created. But I think he has the foundations of the earth already formed when he says this. And the Shemaim is where his throne is going to be located, or where it's located. And he has the space, basically the space where he's going to place the moon, sun, and the stars already. That's what I believe. So I'm
Okay,
on board with you here. The only part
I
that I'm
know.
not on board with is obviously this moon, sun, and the stars being created yet. But everything
Well,
else, I'm
let
on board.
me let me hone you in a little bit more right now. Okay.
Okay.
So first thing we started with was those two words in Isaiah, right?
Yes.
And when we talked about those two different words in Isaiah, we were both willing to parse those two different words to the point where we said there's something different about each of these words. Each of these words means something completely different. And when we come to, and man, I'm just going all over the place because I know what it's like to sit there and hear somebody like what I'm saying right now say what I'm saying.
And it might be hard for other people to understand, but I've studied this pretty like really deep, so I understand like totally. So if anybody's not getting it, it's just I think that the only place that we're differing is the moon, sun, and the stars being created beforehand, if that makes sense, before day 4.
Okay, so
But everything else I'm good.
let's jump in here for a second. So we've talked about the word bara in verse 1. The thing that I want to show you is that bara is not found anywhere before day 5. Again, there's other. So okay, so listen to this now. Between Genesis 1:1 and 2:5, there's 80 different verbs and infinitives. 80 different verbs and infinitives from verse 1 to 2:5. That word bara is not found again before day 5. So let me do a little exercise here, and then we'll go into the other words for a second. I want to sum up what God does in the 6 days. Let's start with day 6 and go backwards, and you just give me 1 or 2 words. You don't have to give me a whole paragraph. What does God do on day 6? Just give me 1 or 2 words.
What does he do? He creates day 6. He creates humans. He
Okay,
creates
perfect
people. Yeah,
perfect. What's he do on day 5?
Day 5, he creates the animals, the sea
Perfect.
life.
Perfect.
And yeah.
Perfect.
All right.
Day 4.
Day 4, he creates the moon, sun, and the stars. The greater light to rule the day, lesser light to rule the night, and he placed them in the firmament.
Okay, so let's stop there because you're now using the word create on day 4. One of the things I want you to realize is the word bara is not found from verses 14 and 19. It's just not there. God uses, or Moses rather, uses a whole nother word. Now here's the other word he uses. He uses the word asah, A-S-A-H, or as we say in Jersey, Asa. But asah is the word, asah. Now listen to this for just a second. Asah,
sorry. Go ahead.
Asah has 70 different, according to Strong's or any Bible concordance, Asah has over 70 different meanings.
Is Asah the word said? Is that what you're saying?
Nope.
Oh,
nope.
okay. Which word is
So
Asah?
we would use the word. Let me look here on. You got the New King James up.
Which part is
okay? Go to verse 16.
Okay.
You're there. I'm just saying, take your eyes there.
16. Okay.
It says, and then
Oh,
God
made. Okay.
Now, I want to talk to you about this word made for a second. You tell me when you're ready. I want your 100% of your attention. You're probably auditory though, right? You can multitask.
Maybe. Okay.
Okay, let me
Oh,
take you to Asah for a second in a word picture. If you and I are sitting there, you said you got how many kids?
I have 3 kids going on 4.
And how old are you? How old are your kids?
I have a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 5-year-old.
Okay,
or 4-year-old now. Sorry, she turned 4. 4-year-old.
So let's say you and I are sitting there with your kids, and it's Dad's day to take care of the kids, and we're entertaining them. And I go over to Walmart and I get a whole thing of Play-Doh. I've got a red can, a yellow can, a blue can, a green can. We put them down in front of your kids. You and I take some of the Play-Doh. And I say to you, hey kids, I say to you and I say to the kids, let's make something. So you're sitting there and I'm not maybe that creative with Play-Doh. I just make a ball, right? Let's say you make a tree. One of your kids makes a dog, whatever. What you just did was a saw. You just took that Play-Doh and you saw something. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Truth be told, Hasbro doesn't even, they don't even borrow Play-Doh. They saw Play-Doh.
Yep.
The company itself. So what a saw? So a saw has 70 different meanings. Let me give you a couple of the meanings. Fashion, prepare, arrange, work, make, we just said make, put in order, appoint, bring about, and listen to this last one, do. If I say to you, hey, Josh, can you give me a second? I'm going to go do the dishes.
Yeah.
Doing the dishes is a saw.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when you look in scripture, you do not find bara outside of verse 1. The only other time you find bara in all of Genesis 1 is with the creation of life. Now we can go to the rest of the Old Testament later because there's some exceptions. But generally speaking, what God is doing is he's already created the universe, heavens and the earth, in verse 1. And then he's going to take 6 days to saw the earth for life. So
Arrange
when we
it,
went,
basically,
we
like
went back,
arrange it is what you're saying, right? That's the way.
prepare it.
Yeah.
I use
Prepare.
the word prepare, but arrange is a great word. Here's what I don't want us to use. I don't want us to use the word create because the words create's not there. And in English, if you, I don't know, you guys had Thanksgiving. Did you have a pumpkin pie that one of you guys made?
No, I this Thanksgiving we just I didn't have family. It was just me and my wife and kids. But usually I
Okay.
know we usually do. Last Thanksgiving, I would say, yeah, we made a pumpkin pie.
Okay, good. So use the word make. And from here on out, and I
Or
actually
probably bought a pumpkin pie, didn't make it, but I understand
yeah,
what you're
no,
going
I get it. I get it. You saw, if you're going to make one, you saw a pie. You
Yeah.
take that, and jump to Esther, book of Esther for a second.
Okay, no problem. Let's see.
And I'm already going to warn you, we're never going to get past Genesis 1 here.
Hold on, let me see. Esther, where are you? Okay, let me go. Esther. All right.
Go to chapter 5.
Okay, no problem.
THER. There you go.
Perfect. See, it pulls it up fast. All right, cool.
Yeah. So go ahead and start reading there.
Now it happened on the third day that Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court on the king's palace, across from the king's house, while the king sat on his royal throne in the royal house, facing the entrance of the house. So it was that the king saw Queen Esther standing in the court, that she found favor in his sight. The king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. Then Esther went near and touched the top of the scepter. And the king said to her, "What do you wish, Queen Esther? What is your request? It shall be given to you up half the kingdom." Hold on, let me. So Esther answered, and it pleased the king, "Let the king and Haman come today to the banquet that I have prepared for him." Then the king said, "Bring Haman quickly, that he may do as Esther has said." So the king and Haman went to the banquet, and Esther had prepared. At the banquet of wine, the king said to Esther, "What is your petition? It shall be granted. What is your request? Up to half the kingdom, it shall be done." Then Esther answered and said, "My petition and request is this: If I have found favor in the sight of the king, then it pleases the king to grant my petition and fulfill my request. Then the king and Haman came to the banquet which I will prepare for them, and tomorrow I will do as the king has said.
Okay, you can stop reading there. So in verse 5, it says, so the king and Haman went to the banquet that Esther had saw. In verse 4, it also says the same thing. Come
Okay.
today to the banquet I have saw.
Yep.
So
As I was reading, I was actually catching those too.
good. I
That's
want you to
good.
see that, because
Yeah.
what we do in America is we say, I'm gonna go create a painting. You
Yeah.
don't create a painting, you saw creating. And never, ever, ever have I ever found, with one exception, have I ever found the word saw translated in a Bible translation as the word create. Someone found one time where they mistranslated saw as create, but saw has 70 different meanings, and it's never, ever, ever once translated with a good translator as create. Now, here's the reason why one of those translations had the word create for saw, because my understanding is, in order for you to have a new, let's say you have a new Bible translation, you have to have, by law, you have to have 10% different amount of words than another translation. You have
to be able to
that
copyright
different.
it.
So watch this. I'm going to use the word. Translators get very creative in their, and see, that's the wrong word. We use it in English all the time. I'm going to create a pie. I'm going to create a book. I'm going to create a poem. But what we're really doing is assigning all those things. But in English, the two words are synonyms. And here's the thing I'm trying to get you to see. They're not synonyms in Hebrew. And I just went on the internet yesterday and I typed in the difference between assign and create. And of course, one of those young earth creationist websites came up. Gosh, I can't even think of which one it was, but right away they got an article why bara and asa are the same word.
They had an article on that?
Not.
Yeah.
What?
They had an article on that?
They had a whole article, and
Wow.
basically in 500 words, they said you're a fool if you think they're not the same word.
Wow.
And I'm here to say they're not the same word. We started with Isaiah to show that words have meaning in Hebrew, right?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's what how I would probably, and you know what? I'm not like I don't know how Flatzoid was when you were on his show. But
he was a gentleman. He was great. They were, and PJ was there, and some of the other guys.
Okay, cool.
Amazing guy. Amazing.
Okay,
guy.
cool. I get along with Flatzoid really good, and all those guys. So I was just making sure, because I don't know. Sometimes
no, they are amazing. They were amazing guys. I was not prepared for the question, for that one question they had. So that's why I went back and did a little more.
So here's where I think here's how I think God creates, where I don't even need that word bara. When he says God said, right? He's using, when he says it, I think that he speaks and it becomes. So when he says God said, that's him creating whatever he speaks. So when he speaks and says, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, let it divide the water from the waters, thus God made the firmament. What I think he says, when he speaks, he creates. So when he says, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, divide the water from the waters, it's created. Bam. Then it says, then God basically arranged it and said, thus God made the firmament, divided the waters which were under the firmament from waters which were above the firmament, right? Then he says, then God said, right? That's him creating, right? Let the waters under the heavens be gathered together in one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so, and God called the dry land earth, and gathered, so that's him forming. So what I believe personally is, when God says, basically using the word, which I believe is Jesus, says something, he speaks and it becomes. That's how I would maybe contest that. But so instead of using the word bara, create, it's even more impressive because God is just saying it and creating it. And then when you use that other word, made, that's him arranging it. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm with you 100%, and the same thought pattern you have right now is the same thought pattern that most people have until they finish seeing. Let me put some more pieces of this puzzle together,
Okay,
and then
keep going.
we'll come back to that. I want you to remember though, we started by working backwards on day 6. God created
Okay.
man. Day
Yeah,
5, He
create man.
creates animals. Day
Yes.
4, we're not finding the word bara. What do we find on day 4? We find two completely other words. We find asa, as we just said.
Yeah.
Actually, we find 4 different verbs on day 4. We find the word Nathan. Nathan means to assign. So what he does, he creates the sun, moon, and stars on day on in verse 1. By the way, I'll say this, and then we'll talk about this. Verse 1 is before day 1, and I want to talk about that because I believe in 6 literal days of preparation.
Yeah.
So he assigns on day 4. He assigns the sun, moon, and stars as markers and signs for seasons. And then there's a couple other verbs, like you said, the verb haya, let there be, let there be, let there be. But let me, and we're jumping all over the place here. So let's go back to working backwards. I want to work backwards. So I want you to walk backwards. Day 6, he creates man. Day 5, he creates animals. Day 4, let's just use one verb there. He assigns the sun, moon, and stars, right? Um, so, and then we've got day 3, we've got day 2, we've got day 1. Listen to this. Take away Adam and Eve. Take away the land animals. Subtract the sea animals and the birds. Eliminate the assignment of the celestial bodies. Take away a habitable atmosphere. Sink the land back into the ocean. And verse 3 to 5, plunge the planet into darkness. And what do you have? You go back to verse 2. You have everything that says in Genesis. You can go back by here to Genesis 1, verse 2 now. So we just worked backwards from the 6 days to day 1, and I'm calling verses 3 to 5 day 1. We just ended up in verse 2. What is verse 2? The earth was without form, void in darkness, and darkness is over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God is hovering over the waters. So what I'm trying to say is when you take those 6 days, and I'm taking verses 3 to 5 as day 1, you take those 6 days, you're left with what's in verses 2 and 1. Everything else is preparation of the biosphere for life. And maybe biosphere is the wrong word because we don't like that word sphere, do we?
So do you think that the foundations of the earth are created, but the continents are not formed yet? Is that right?
I would go that
Do you think
far.
the firmament do you think the
Yeah.
firmament was made already?
Yes.
You think it was?
No,
Okay.
no. The firmament's not made till day 2.
Okay, so you think the firmament, so why would you have that same why would you not use that same hermeneutics for the sun and the moon and the stars?
Okay,
Because it doesn't
let's
say,
go.
for example, it's saying that, see, it says God said, which I think when he said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, let it divide the waters from the waters, he's creating the firmament on day 2, right?
I would agree with that. Yeah.
So
No, stop. He's preparing the firmament
so
on
do you
day
think
2.
the firmament was already created on day 1? That's
Not
my
necess-
question.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily.
I'm just curious. And I'm only asking that because
Yeah.
I wanted to see your thoughts on it because so okay, so
So let's what do you hung up on most first of all? You hung
oh,
up on day 4?
No, I'm not hung up. I think I understand where you're going. I understand the gentleman that proposes this train of thought. There's a reason why he has that train of thought. But you're just speaking of the wordish, which with the wordage of it, which I understand. In the
So
beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The
let's
heavens,
go to
the heavens is going to include the moon, sun, and the stars, but he
yep.
just hasn't placed them anywhere yet. He just has them created, right?
No, he created the sun, moon, and stars. But what he does on on day 4
He arranged
is
them.
he assaws them, which means he prepares them. Let's say,
Where do you
let's
think the
say,
moon, sun, and the stars were when on day one? Like, did he just have them like just waiting on the side, and then he created
okay,
the firmament, and then he just take them and placed them in there and arranged them? Is that what you think?
let me give you an illustration that'll help. My son-in-law owns a portable pizza truck, and in order for him to go out, let's say he goes out 2 days from now, and he's going to sell, 50 pizzas. He he takes the dough, he puts it into this lump, and he makes 50 of those, and he puts them in a cooler. 2 days later, he takes that lump of pizza, he prepares it,
Yeah.
and makes a pizza on that day of the
With the
fair
dough.
or the carnival.
Yeah.
But he's created, and I'm using the word create in the English way, not in the Hebrew way.
Yeah.
He
Yeah. Yeah.
creates that lump in the beginning.
Yeah. 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 I
So
understand. So
that's the analogy here.
I'm 100% with you, Chris, and that's the way I explain everything. The only thing that I don't say, which I don't believe yet, is that the moon, sun, and the stars were created yet. That's the only thing. But I
Well,
do believe
well,
that.
let's go. Let me go to day 4 then.
Okay, let's go.
Let's go to day 4. I want you to bring up verse 14 there.
Yep.
So the first thing we're going to notice, and do we need to read this? Do you want to read this?
I'll read it, no problem. And
Okay,
people have
read
heard
it.
me
Go
read
ahead.
this. So then God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, for days and year. Oh, sorry, for signs and seasons, for days and years, and let them be for lights in the firmament of heaven to give light on the earth." And it was so. Then God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. God set them in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth and to rule over the day and over the night and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw it was good. So the evening and morning were the fourth day.
Okay, so the first thing I want everybody to notice is that the word bara or create is not found in any of these verses. It's just not there. God, or Moses rather, uses other verbs. And one of the verbs he uses is haya. And then God said, let there be. And then he also uses the word Nathan. If you know any friends named Nathan, the
Yeah.
word Nathan, the simplest use of the word Nathan is to assign. And he uses the word asa, which can mean 70 different words, like prepare. It actually can mean appoint. It can mean arrange, but it doesn't mean create. So he uses these other verbs. But I want you to notice something else. The One of the things that most English versions do here is they change the order of the Hebrew. So in verse 14, it says, let there be lights. Do you know what it says in the Hebrew?
Uh,
Let Go
hold on.
ahead.
Okay, hold on. And
You
God
don't have to
said,
go to the Hebrew, by the way, because I don't want to get so far off the tangent, but we can go back to this later.
go ahead, go ahead. What does it say in the Hebrew?
It says in the Hebrew, let the lights in the expanse of the sky, now here's the verb, be to separate, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Let the lights be. In the English we're looking at right now, it says, let there be lights. So gives you the impression in verse 14 that he's commanding lights to exist. Let there be lights. But in the Hebrew, it says, let the lights be. That's a completely different, the presumption is, in the Hebrew, the presumption is the lights are already there. Now, he's saying, let the lights be to divide the day from night, to be for signs and seasons. Whereas the way we've been taught and the way most biased English translators, and by the way, I was a biased English Hebrew translator. I had all the Hebrew and the Greek, and I translated this back in seminary back in the day. Let there be lights, but that's really not what the Hebrew says. The Hebrew says, "Let the lights be," which is an assigning purpose. So what he does on day 4 is the lights that are already created in verse 1 are now assigned a purpose specifically related to the biosphere for man. When God creates the universe, when God creates the heavens and the earth, there's the earth and it can't support life. And now on day 4, he's now giving the sun, moon, and stars a purpose. Yeah. He's created them way back in verse 1, and he's giving them a purpose on day 4. And
very
by
interesting.
the way,
that's very and it's understandable. So I can understand what you're saying. So one thing we got to understand too is this still doesn't prove heliocentricity, which obviously Chris is not.
No.
This proves, because he created these to light up the earth. That's what he means. It's meant for signs, for seasons, for days, for years. Let them be for lights in the firmament of heaven to give light on the earth. So yeah, so God probably wouldn't place them, 93 million miles away, 256,000 miles away, or place them, 26 trillion miles away if they were made to light up the earth, right? They're not made to light up Andromeda and all these other galaxies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I want to jump to a couple other things. We'll bring this in, and then hopefully we can wrap it up before you got to go. Let's go. We're skipping verse 2, which by the way, I really want to go into verse 2. So maybe we'll end with verse 2, but let's just go to verse 3 for a second. I want you to look at verse 3 for a second, and
okay, you want me to read it?
So just, verse 3, 4, and 5. Read all of those.
Okay. Then God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light, and it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness, and God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So the evening and the morning were the first day.
Now, what I think is going on here, and I'm going to call this day 1, and I'll tell you why in a second. What's going on is the sun, moon, and stars are created in verse 1. But the earth, and we skipped verse 2, but the earth is sitting in darkness. And now God commands that light from the sun, created in verse 1, to pierce that darkness. Now, I don't know what it is in California. Right now, it's pretty sunny here in Colorado Springs. But on a cloudy day, you can't see the sun, but the light is out. This is what I think is going on.
Yeah.
In verse 1. Now, I want to do something. It's almost Christmas. We're about a month away from Christmas. There's a little Christmas song maybe you teach your kids called the 12 Days of Christmas, right? And here's how the 12 Days of Christmas goes. On the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me a partridge in a pear tree. On the second day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 2 turtle doves and a partridge in a pear tree. On the third day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. That song follows a pattern. On the X day of Christmas, my true love, or on the X day of Christmas, that's how it starts, and it ends with a partridge in a pear tree. Now watch this. Beginning in verse 3, every single day except day 7 starts with, and God said. And every single day ends with, and so evening and morning were the X day. That Genesis and that 12 days of Christmas follow the same pattern. That pattern doesn't start till verse 3. And God said. So I'm contending here that day one begins with verse 3. And God said, begins day one. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes
Now,
sense for sure.
now let's go back to, for just a second, let's go back to verse 2, because I really want to get verse 2 in here before you've got to cut out. Verse 2, most people skip over it. They completely skip over verse 2. But I contend that verse 2 is packed with things
Yeah, I
that
agree.
so here we've got in verse 2. Go ahead and read verse 2. I don't think we've
All right.
read that.
The earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters.
So most people read that and they go right on to 3, and then when they get to verse 5, they summarize verse 1 to 5 as the first day.
Yep.
And I'm saying that in the beginning God created he borrowed the heavens and earth, and in verse 2 the earth is clearly sitting there, and the Spirit of God is hovering over the face of the waters. Now this word, let's look at this word hovering for a second. It's the word brood. And it's the same word used in elsewhere in Scripture for, in Deuteronomy 32:11. God is, an eagle is brooding over its nest. Now let me tell you what brooding is. A mother hen broods over her eggs for 21 days on average. Albatross parents, they take turns, the male and the female. They brood over their eggs for 70 to 80 days. Emperor penguin, they can brood over their chick and their egg or their chick for a total of 100 to 10, 115 days. So Moses, doesn't it strike you odd that of all the verbs that Moses could have used, he picks a verb which illustrates birds patiently waiting, watching over their young, to describe something God does now before the 6 days. So God, the Holy Spirit of God, is now brooding, and Moses could have used, there's 80 different verbs between 1:1 and 2:5. Why did he pick the word brood? It's just a very curious, very illustrious verb that Moses picks. And what is he conveying to the Hebrew? He might not be conveying it to you and me, but to the Hebrew, he's conveying the passage of time. So God creates the heavens and the earth. The Spirit of God now is brooding over the water, face of the waters there. And then at some point in time, he takes 6 literal days to prepare the earth for life. And on days 5 and 6, he puts life, he creates life on that earth.
Mm-hmm.
I'll stop there for a second.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I can understand where you're coming from, where you're saying that. Yeah, I definitely get it. The only difference between us, like I said, is just the moon, sun, and the stars being created. And I understand where you're coming from with it. And I totally get why you're coming up with that, because instead of God creating, God is just arranging everything for life. I understand. And I would say that what some people try to do is they try to say that there was a and these people have written books about this, made tons of money off of it and all that. What people try to say is that this is the first earth created. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. They think that that's the first earth that Satan and angels ruled. This is called the gap theory. And then they say the earth was without form and void, so God destroyed that old earth and created the new one. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff written on that. So I don't believe any of that, but I just wanted to just give you guys a different perspective on that. But I understand where you're coming from with this, and I think it's super interesting because and then when it says that the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters, some people think that that's the ocean, or the seas. But what I would say is that it started out with waters, and God separated the waters from the waters with the firmament, right? And then I think God already has the foundations of the earth created on this what we would say in the beginning. You're not going to say day one here. You'd say in the beginning, the foundations of the earth were created. It says that darkness was upon the face of the deep. In the Greek, that's the abuso. So that's actually like, because I do believe that hell is in the earth, Chris. I think you'd maybe think the same thing. Sheol
Yes.
would be in the earth. So I think
Yeah.
that that's created. So that's the way I explain everything. The only difference between me and Chris, everybody, is that the moon, sun, and the stars are already created, which I think is very interesting. You know, I think that's the way that you're explaining it. And to let you guys know, Chris has a doctrine in, you know, in the Hebrew, the Greek, and all that stuff. So I like I said, I'm merely just a human trying to explain stuff that it gets super deep.
Well, let me address a couple things you just mentioned. The first thing is I think that this verse 2, when the English says the earth was without form and void, I think that's the worst possible English translation ever to be pressed upon you and me and the human race. I don't think the Hebrew says that at all, and we really don't have the time to go in too much here. But if we were to compare tohu wa bohu in
Yeah.
here, in this that phrase here, we can find it in Jeremiah and some other places, and the primary definition of the words, which again we don't. I want to move on to some other things. We can come back to this maybe in a part two, but the primary definition is empty and empty, uninhabitable. It's all verbs like that: emptiness, futility, emptiness, and it. In my opinion, what it really says here, the earth was empty and unproductive.
Mm.
And what is he going to do for 6 days? He's going to fill it and he's going to make it productive. The idea here of without form and void really comes from I hate to say this, but it comes from bias of the translators. If you believe, and I'm not asking you if you do, but if you believe in the if you're a pre-tribber in the New Testament, you know the one of the worst versions to read translations is the NIV, because none of the NIV translators of the New Testament were pre-tribbers. I don't know if you can go back now and get a list. You used to be able to get a list of the translators in the New Testament.
I know,
None of them,
and
none of
sometimes
them were pre-tribbers.
sometimes
None.
sometimes Trinitarians are, which I'm a Trinitarian, but I'm just saying sometimes Trinitarians are would write something that would oppose, you know, to someone else. So I understand what you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. It's
and
bias.
NIV would say expanse too for the word firmament, and yeah, I mean I know
Let
you
me
used that earlier, but
let me address the gap theory for a second. I don't believe in the gap theory.
me
Now,
neither.
I do believe the angels fell at some point, but I'll tell you why I don't believe in the gap theory. Because in order to believe in the gap theory, here's what you have to do to the Hebrew in verse 2. If I said to you, "Hey, Josh, where have you been?" and you say, "I has went to the store," would I understand what you meant? Sure. The guy was at the store. Is it good grammar? No. I has went to the store. That's what we have to do. That's an English equivalent of what the Hebrew would say if we were saying, now the earth became. So I throw out the gap theory, and the other thing is, you grammatically speaking, and I don't have time to go into this, but grammatically speaking, you can't have a grammatical break between verse 2 and verse 1.
Mhm.
You can, and you do have a break grammatically between 2 and 3.
Mhm.
So verse 3 is a whole new paragraph. It's a whole new thought. And that's as I mentioned with the 12 days of Christmas, verse 3 begins day 1.
Yeah. Hey.
So to get back to day 4 though, because I want to beat a dead horse here. We're not finding on day 4, we're not finding bara. We found that they've switched the Hebrew verb haya, let there be lights, when it really should say, let the lights be. And then we're finding other verses like Nathan. God is assigning Nathan means assign. He's assigning these lights now that he created back in verse 1. He's now, okay, I'm going to give these lights a purpose. I'm assigning them now. So day 4 is an assignment, and everything in those 6 days is the earth biosphere being created for life, and the culmination of that is days 5 and 6, where he then goes back to the verb bara. He now creates, he bara life on days 5 and 6. And to sum it all up, and I'll stop here for a second, to sum it all up, when you go to Exodus 20 and say, Exodus 20 verse 11 is the commandment where we need to rest on the 7th day because God rested on the 7th day, you can't find the word bara. God did not bara for 6 days in Exodus 20. And this is usually the culmination. We say God created the heavens and earth in 6 days. It doesn't say that in the Hebrew. The word bar, he asa, he prepares what he had previously created. He now prepares it for life. Go to, unless you want to jump in, go to chapter 2, verses 1 to 4.
Yeah, I use this a lot too. Okay.
Go ahead and read.
Okay. Thus the heavens and earth and all the hosts of them were finished. On the 7th day, God ended his work, which he had done. He rested on the 7th day from all the work which he had done.
Stop for 2 seconds.
Okay.
Both those words done are asa. That's the word asa. Okay, keep going.
Then God blessed the 7th day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his work which God had created and made.
Stop. So that's with the work which God had bara and asa. So he's using
created
2 verbs
and arranged. What? It's like he created and arranged. Yeah.
Yes. I want to give you a real life example. This happened a couple of years ago. I go into this guy's house. He's got a leak in the lower basement bathroom. Now I want you to count my verbs. I ripped out the countertop. I turned off the water. I ripped out the countertop. I removed the toilet. I repaired the toilet flange. I replaced the ABS piping. I sealed the drain shut. I repainted the floor. I put in a new cabinet. I installed the sink. I seated the toilet. I caulked where it's necessary. I get all done. I tell him what I did. I sent him an email, and he thanked me with 1 verb. Thank you for remodeling my bathroom. I just used a dozen verbs. God creates the universe, and we say, oh, created and made are synonyms. Why do we do that? Why? The Hebrew language, biblical Hebrew, which is unspoken, has less than 9,000 words.
Yeah.
We have in English, we have somewhere
100,000.
between, we have somewhere between 8,200 and 8,700. Okay. In English,
verbs.
we have, we have 82, let's say 8,500 words in biblical Hebrew. In English, we have somewhere between 170,000 and 250,000 words. So for every 1 word in Hebrew, there's 20 words in English. We get to verse, and this is what this guy on this Young Earth Creationist page did the other day. He took created and made and said they're the exact same word. But yet we know asa is never in 70 different meanings is it ever treated like create. And he said, oh, there's synonyms here. No, what Moses is doing here in verse 3, he takes 2 of the most important verbs and he puts them in the 1 sentence, because I want to tell you why. On days 5 and 6, where bara comes back, the verb bara comes back, you know, he also asas man and Adam and Eve. He asas and he baras Adam and Eve. He takes 2 verbs Moses takes 2 verbs to explain what God did with Adam and with Eve. And sometimes, depending on where in the rest of the Old Testament, sometimes he asas animals, sometimes he bara animals. But the point is that in the beginning, he baras the universe, and then for 6 days he's preparing that biosphere, and he borrows life. He never borrows
Can we
anything
go? Let's
else.
go to day 6 real quick.
Yeah,
God, so and then that way you could show the difference right there.
yeah, go for it.
So we have bring forth creatures. So it'd be verse 26, right?
Yep.
Okay. So go. So it's then God said, "Let
Yeah,
us make
that's
man."
haya. That's the
Uh-huh.
verb haya. He commands. He let it
Said,
be, right.
"Let us make man in our image, according
And
to our
make is a
likeness."
saw. Make
Yeah.
is a saw.
Yep. According to our likeness, let them have
By the
dominion
way,
over
can I
the
say
fish.
something?
Yeah. Go
Can
ahead.
I
Go
say
ahead.
something?
Yeah.
That's the only time in Genesis 1 where you've got those two verbs next to each other. Haya asa. He does it with man.
So it
Okay,
says,
keep going.
said, let us make man in our image according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish in the sea, over the birds of the air, over the cattle, over all the earth, and over the creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own
Bara.
image. Yeah.
Yep.
In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. Then God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the every living thing that moves on the earth.
Yep.
So God created man in his own image. So we have God said, let us make man in our image according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish in the sea, over the cattle, over the earth, creeping thing. So he said it, and then so God created man in his own image. So that's the part that you're talking about, right?
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, we when people go to chapter 2, verses 4 to 5, which by the way, most of us believe that that's part of chapter 1. It's just a bad. They shouldn't have made it chapter 2, because I think verses 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 of chapter 2 ought to be part of chapter 1. But that's beside the point. I renovated the bathroom and used 12 verbs to renovate that bathroom. And yet when we get to chapter 2, verses 1 through 5, we say, well, create and made are synonyms, are the same, mean the same thing. No, they don't mean the same. They mean completely different things. God, man and animals both have the privilege of having God use multiple verbs on what he did with his higher forms of creation, higher than trees, higher than rocks, higher than water, higher than plants.
Yeah. I see.
He uses multiple verbs. And this is the problem that young earth creationists have. They have to say, so young earth creationists believe a bunch of things which you and I don't believe. And I hope after today you don't call yourself a young earth creationist. Let's call ourselves biblical creationists or flat earth creationists, or I'd love if you said young biosphere creationists. So I believe the biosphere, okay, let me address this. I believe the biosphere is recent. How do we know that? Because the genealogies are less than 6,500 years, right? But I don't believe we can use the genealogies to show how old the heavens and the earth are, because in verse 2, we've got the Spirit of God brooding over the earth before he prepares it in 6 literal days.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to throw billions of years in there, by the way. I'm not a billions of years guy.
No. I get it.
Could it be? Could it be? I mean, when God broods, we had penguins brooding for 110 days. When God broods, and then we have the problem with Genesis or Exodus 20. Exodus 20 never says he creates the universe in 6 days. And everybody always goes there. Never says he created the earth in 6 days. It says he prepared the earth in 6 days. You see the difference?
Yeah, I do. And I think it's very,
Again, it goes back to those verbs we talked about in Isaiah. We got 2 verbs in Isaiah that are completely different things. I'm just trying to apply that to.
And then it kind of seals it at the end.
Genesis 1, right?
When you see Genesis 2, and it says his work. And also it's saying that, also it's letting you know here in Genesis 2 that it's work, right? So he's actually doing something, right?
His work.
He's just not like, so it looks like he's like you said, arranging things or putting things in place. So I think that's a great argument there.
I like
And then
I like the word prepare.
yeah,
Prepare
yeah, yeah.
because
Or prepare,
because
prepare.
because in verse 2 it's not prepared, right? He has to take 6 days to prepare it because it's not ready for life.
Yeah, so it says that God ended his work which he had done. So he's
Asa.
actually
Yep.
doing something, right? He's like you
Yep.
said, preparing.
Yep.
Um, and I would say arrange because he's placing him in certain places, like he placed the moon,
Yeah.
sun, and the stars in the firmament, right?
Yeah. So that's
So
the word of sign now.
yeah,
Nathan is the word of sign.
yeah,
So he does that on day 4. He takes those celestial bodies and he signs them a purpose.
yeah. And then so yeah, and then this is the history of the heavens and earth when they were created in the day that the Lord God had made the earth and the heavens.
Yeah.
So that word is used, right? This is
Yeah.
the
So
history of
we're talking.
heavens and
So the
the
word
earth.
created is the word bara, but he borrows the heavens, the earth, and he then prepares them, just like
It
the
says,
analogy of the pizza.
so you're saying, so this is basically telling you this is right here when it stops right here. This is Genesis 1,
Yep,
1.
that's bara. Yep.
And then this is basically him arranging it in the days that he's doing.
Yeah,
Okay, so I see.
preparing it, arranging it.
And sorry, I keep saying arrange. I don't mean to keep saying arrange, but I preparing, right?
That's fine. No, it does. No, Asa does mean arrange. It just
Yeah, yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
mean
yeah.
a sign. A
Yeah, yeah.
sign is the word Nathan in verse
Yeah.
on day 4.
Yeah,
A
where he's
sign.
assigning
So
them to the firmament,
that's
right?
a
Placing.
signing. That's a different Hebrew word. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah,
So
very interesting.
just like that analogy of the pizza, it's created one day. It's then prepared over 6 literal 24-hour days. I believe there are 6 literal 24-hour days. So I
Yes.
believe in Noah's flood. I believe the fossils are a result mostly of that flood and all that other kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
you get the idea here.
I do, I do.
That's
And
pretty much my whole. That's pretty much my whole premise that the biosphere is what is prepared in 6 days after God had created what we'd call the universe.
yeah, very interesting. Very interesting take, and you finished perfectly on time.
Yeah, yeah.
So we'll go back. So yeah, I think that's very interesting. And you know what? It's good to know the Hebrew and the Greek and everything that when you're going through the Bible like that, so that you can see those types of things. Like most people wouldn't get those connections where it says made and create. They're just
Right.
gonna, like you said, just put it into one. So
They
like I do,
conflate the two words.
yeah. I think it's interesting. Interesting thought. And we have the same exact thought process. The only thing that would be different for me is I would think when I think that there was the foundations of the earth. I think that there was the heavens were created where God's throne is located, and the heavens where God is going to place the firmament. And so I do think that the only difference between us is that you think that they were created before right there. God is hovering over the face of the waters, kind of brewing, and then there's an amount of time placed there, which I think that's definitely could be true, and that's why maybe the dirt seems like it's older than or whatever they look at, rocks or whatever. It could just be there, right? And then God, I understand where you're coming from with
Yeah,
all of
yeah.
that you're saying. Yeah,
I will tell you though, I reject most of geology because
yeah, yeah, yeah,
we can have to because they believe in billions and billions of years. Could
yeah,
there be billions of years? Let me tell you something. There could be billions of years between verses 2 and 3 because
yeah.
our God's eternal.
Yes,
And
yes,
why would Moses use the word brooding if
yeah,
he's not trying to convey the passage of time? He could have
yeah,
picked 50 other words,
yeah,
but he
yeah,
uses the word brooding. He's conveying the passage of time. What does that mean? I don't know what it means.
yeah,
I just know the 6 days are separate from the initial creation. And like I said, I reject the gap theory, but that certainly gives a lot of time for the angelic war,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
But I don't. But
exactly.
the difference is that with the gap theory, I don't believe that the earth was then put into destruction and ruin. I don't believe that at all because there's too many verses that talk about the earth was created to be inhabited. The earth was created good and perfect. Verses like that out of Isaiah in different places.
Yeah,
Psalms talks about that. You
yeah,
you go to Job 38, and what does Job 38 talk about? Talks about the earth being wrapped in darkness.
yeah. And
That's
then
verse 2. That's
and
verse
also
2.
says that the angels were the morning stars and the angels were
Sang.
shouting for joy when God laid
They
the foundations of the earth, which is the
exactly.
beginning. That's
Exactly.
that's why I use that. That's why I use that verse when I say that in the beginning, I think that it's saying that God created the foundations of the earth. I don't think it's the continents yet because yes,
No, I agree with you 100%,
yeah,
100% there. I agree with you.
yeah,
Yeah. I don't
yeah.
think there's
So
much difference between what you're saying right now and what I was saying.
there's not much difference
No.
at all. But it's a big difference compared to what people say that are not the belief that we have.
Well, yeah,
It's
and here's the problem with young Earth creationists. Young Earth creationists believe in a globe.
yes,
So we
that is
need
the
to
big
reject
problem.
we need to reject young Earth creationists. If we're going to be biblical creationists, we got to reject young. Now, the one thing they get right, in my opinion, is they get right the 6 days, 6 literal
Mhm.
days.
Yeah,
The one thing old Earth creationists get right, like Hugh Ross, they only get one thing right, in my opinion. Day 4. If you
uh-huh.
read if you read Hugh Ross on day 4, what does he say? He says that the light that was created in verse 1 now shines through on day 4.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the only thing that he gets right, in my opinion.
And I think that they're using that for an Earth orbiting the sun. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah,
That's why
yeah,
they're using that. So
yeah.
that's
Yep,
why someone like me or Flatzoid would be like, reject it. But well,
exactly.
you're not that guy.
Not
You're
at
the
all.
same
Not
as
at
us.
all.
Exactly,
I
exactly.
mean,
So
to me, it's all about the Hebrew. Oh, I want to end. If you got to go, I just want to end with one sentence or one quote here. This is from Thomas Aquinas, the 13th century. This is from his book, the Summa Theologica. He says, "But the heavens existed before the days, as is clear from the words, in the beginning, God created heavens and earth. It seems better to maintain that the creation of the heavens and earth was prior to any of the days." That's Thomas
yeah,
Aquinas from the
yeah,
13th century. So,
yeah.
anyway,
Super interesting. Hey, and a great podcast and a great show, packed with knowledge, and stuff that we could all use, and that's why it's important to know the Greek, the Hebrew, and to know certain things like that. You pick up certain things that the Holy Spirit shows you, and I think it's interesting. I'll
if you ever
definitely dig into it deeper for sure.
if you ever want to come back at me with a podcast, maybe around Easter, I've got a book I've written called. So we have the parables of Jesus.
Hey, sorry, my dog is going crazy. He needs to go
No
outside,
words, no
just
words.
like yours.
We got the parables of Jesus. We got the miracles of Jesus. This is the questions of Jesus. I did a whole book on Jesus asked 340 questions. I've got about, I don't know, maybe 25 in this book. And I feel like God gave me this little summary. Can you read that there?
Jesus never asked a question because he needed to know the answer.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, if you could send me the link, email me the link right now when we get off.
I'll,
Okay.
you email me your address. I'll send you a book. How's that?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate
Then
that.
we
And,
come back and visit it at some point. But
okay, let's,
anyway, I got 1,000 places we could go, but
once I'll end this right now and then we'll set up a
yep,
date for the next podcast.
perfect.
Okay.
Sounds
All
good.
right. All right. So, hey, everybody, that was amazing. And Chris, if any last words for our audience, I think that was the
Well,
last words right there.
I think we should end in prayer.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Do you want, since you're a pastor, you can edit a prayer and then, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Lord, we thank you for this time we've had together to talk about your word. And we pray, Lord, that everything we've said here would be used for your glory, your edification, and our education. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
In Jesus' name, amen. Yeah, and everybody that's listening, hey, this is just a deep study, and it was very. I love to speak about Genesis, and I love to speak about God's creation. As you guys know, it's one of my passions, and I really appreciate God introducing me to Chris, and then Matt Long. Thank you so much for introducing me to Chris and having him on, because what an interesting show this was, and like I said, guys, I don't have a background in theology and everything, so sometimes what happens is gentlemen like Chris come on and they kind of put things in place for us in a different perspective, a deep perspective, and I really appreciate it. So we ended in a prayer already. If you guys could, please subscribe to the YouTube if you're listening on audio at Josh Monday Music and Podcast. And also, if you could leave us a 5-star review. And I also started another show called Sunday Service. It's available on Cult and Conspiracy Podcast every Sunday, and I'm going through the book of Genesis. And I just ended the book of Genesis, all 50 chapters, and I started in the book of Exodus. So check that out if you could. Thank you so much, and God bless you.